Hello. This is a short recording designed to explain rhetorical analysis and how to complete the rhetorical analysis assignment for public speaking class at Hillsborough Community College. Rhetorical analysis is a critical analysis of a persuasive act. In order for it to be something that we would want to analyze using rhetorical analysis, it has to be persuasive. The idea is that we are trying to figure out what was the goal that the actor had in wanting to make this persuasive event. And in every case, if it's an informative speech, they succeed in accomplishing their goal. They inform the audience. It's only interesting if we're trying to analyze something that is a persuasive event, because there's a possibility of failure. So when we do a rhetorical analysis, the structure, I think I've posted some notes on the files page on Canvas that outline what the structure is. The structure is fundamentally the same as an informative speech. The rhetorical analysis speech should have an introduction, it should have a body, it should have a conclusion. To give it some more detail, though, the introduction should include some of the background of the speech, like what were some of the events, if they're relevant, some of the events that led up to the presenter's decision to give this persuasive speech. I'll point out, of course, that it doesn't have to be necessarily a speech. It could be a song. It could be a passage from a play. It could be a poem. Anything that is persuasive could be analyzed rhetorically. So in the introduction, you're going to start out by giving us some of the background. You might have to do some historical research to see what was going on that spurred the actor to give this persuasive message. But so yeah, you want to give us some background. In other words, this is the time when you're going to get your audience interested in what you're about to tell them. Because after all, this is a speech about somebody else's speech, and there's a good possibility that the audience has never heard the speech that you're about to talk about. So you need to sell it. So after you've talked to us about what's the historical background, you want to find some way of explaining to us what was the goal, or there might be more than one goal of the speaker in giving this persuasive event or speech. Then you'll use the following subtopics, which will be ethos, speaker credibility, pathos, emotional arguments, and logos, logical arguments. And that will be the basis for your analysis. In the body of the speech, you should discuss in whatever order you choose, but for the purposes of this example, you would use, say, start with ethos. Talk to us about what credibility arguments the speaker made to try to establish credibility with the audience, and how that relates to trying to accomplish what the goal or goals that the speaker had. So that's subtopic number one. Then you would signpost into subtopic number two, which for our purposes is going to be pathos or emotional arguments, and you'll give us a quote from the speech that illustrate the use of an emotional argument, and then you can use one or two quotes or several. Each one of them you want to discuss the quote and how it is relevant to establishing or meeting the goal that the speaker is trying to accomplish. Then finally, you move on to the third subtopic, logos, which is logical arguments. Again, you're going to find a quote from the speech, and you'll give us that quote and again explain how it helps the speaker to meet the goal. So that's the body of the speech, introduction. I'm sorry, the introduction, the body of the first two parts, and then the final part of your speech will be the conclusion. And in the conclusion, you will tell us, if you know, whether the speaker accomplished the goal. And you can have some kind of relevant closing remarks about the benefits of rhetorical analysis or something of that sort. The example that I gave in the class was one where we examined a speech by Richard Nixon from 1952, where he was running for office. He was the running mate of Dwight Eisenhower. So Nixon was trying to be vice president. Now, in 1952, the mood of the nation was unsettled. One of the big issues in the 1950s was our fear of the spread of communism, and Eisenhower and Truman before him um, had publicly stated that we would do everything that we can to prevent the spread of communism. Um, Eisenhower was a war hero from World War II. He was in charge of the European theater of operations. So he was a big war hero, very popular. And so when he chose Richard Nixon, he did it for a particular reason. Nixon, of all the people that he could have chosen, was someone who had actually discovered a communist spy while he was in Congress and had made pretty strenuous efforts to get this communist spy prosecuted and put in jail. The communist spy was a fellow named Alger Hiss, and this is significant because it comes up in the Richard Nixon checkers speech, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. Now, in the course of the election, it came to Eisenhower's attention that Richard Nixon had somehow accumulated a slush fund in the amount of $18,000. Now, in 1952, that's quite a lot of money. The average middle-class American made around maybe $5,000 in a year. So this was triple the amount that anybody, more than triple the amount that most people made in a whole year. So it was naturally of it was troubling because one of the first things that you imagine when you hear that a politician has accumulated a large sum of money is that somebody has bought that politician, that the politician is corrupt, and then when he or she gets into office, they're going to do the bidding of whoever it was that sent them, paid them the money. And Eisenhower was certainly concerned about that, and he told Nixon directly that he needed to clear this up, or else he would have to find another running mate. So what Nixon did was he hired 30 minutes of time from television, and he drafted and delivered this speech, which is the Nixon checkers speech. If you take a look on YouTube and look around for the Nixon checkers speech, you'll find it on there. In class, I normally present the speech myself, pretending to be Richard Nixon. I'm not going to do that here. This is just a summary after all, and you can go look at the Nixon checker speech if you wish to do that. And I would encourage you to do that because it's going to help you understand what we're about to go through. So if you want to pause this at this moment and go watch the Nixon checker speech, go ahead. So having listened to the Nixon checker speech, or at least I presume you're familiar with it then, what we want to do is figure out first what was Richard Nixon's goal in giving the checkers speech. I think there are two goals. Richard Nixon was first attempting to clear his name, which is what Eisenhower told him he had to do if he wanted to remain on the ticket. And secondly, he wanted to win the election. So two goals. If we go through the Nixon checkers speech and begin looking for, this is the way that I would analyze any speech that I'm about to do a rhetorical analysis of. I go through the speech and look first for any arguments that could be interpreted as being ethos or credibility arguments. And remember, credibility can be established by relating something about yourself to your audience, showing your audience that you are similar to them, you have similar ground, similar background, same kind of family, same kind of personal interests, that kind of thing. And so I would go through it and dig out the things that I think relate to credibility. In this case, two things that strike me as being directly related to credibility is, first of all, remember this is in the early 1950s, and this is only 5 years, or let me do the math, 7 years after the end of World War II. Most Americans had family members who had served in World War II. Some were actively involved in the Korean War, which was going on in 1952. So when Nixon talks about his war record, as he does in this speech, it's a way of connecting with his audience, so to show his audience that he has a shared experience with them. He was in World War II. He fought in the Pacific Theater in World War II. And the quote that he gives is something like this. He says, "I suppose I'm entitled to a couple of battle stars, but I was only there. I was just there when the bombs were falling." And that's a decent quote to use. It sounds good coming out of your mouth. And it definitely relates to, it helps establish his credibility because it shows that he participated in the war. Another thing that I would probably use if I was writing a rhetorical analysis of this speech has to do with Richard Nixon's discussion of his early life. He mentions that his family ran a grocery store in Whittier, California, and that he and his four brothers helped work in the store. They weren't rich people to begin with, and the only way that they could make the store run was there were five boys, and they all helped to run the store. That's the quote that Richard Nixon gives approximately. And I would use that also as a credibility argument because we kind of like the idea of someone who has come up from um, meager standards, meager means, not a rich family, and has managed to work hard. And now here this fellow is, Nixon. He's been in the Congress, he's a senator, and now he's trying to be vice president. And so we kind of like and admire somebody who has done the hard work to get to a position of strength and power like that. So I think that's a good quote, a good credibility quote. If we move on to our second subtopic, which would be pathos. Well, no, let's talk about logos. I'll say pathos for the end. The logos, the strongest logical argument, I think, there's two of them, is first of all, he explains why he had the fund in the first place. And that is that the fund was used to pay for political expenses, things things related to his campaign as first as a congressman and then as vice president. He said that this is the kind of thing that should not be paid for by the taxpayers and should come out of the candidate's pocket, or if people want to donate money to assist the candidate, that they can do that. And that's in fact what happened in this case. So he explains there's a need for the fund, why he needed it. And then he produces an independent audit and evaluation, legal opinion, which completely clears him. With the opinion of the attorney is that there was no violation of the tax laws or any other law, and that the operation of the fund was entirely to reimburse Nixon and other members of his staff for designated expenses related to campaigning. So those are the two logical arguments. I think they're very strong logical arguments. I don't think he could have pulled this off without having an independent audit and without being able to have a reasonable explanation as to why he had this fund. So finally, we're at pathos, emotional arguments, and there's some really great emotional arguments there. One of the reasons why I like this speech is there's Richard Nixon throws so much into it. But here's the two. The first one is the emotional argument that the speech is named for. Richard Nixon at some point admits that they did receive a gift. His wife Tricia had mentioned on the Pat, I mean, had mentioned on the radio that that they didn't have a dog, that the children would like to have a dog, and he says someone actually responded to that. They went down to they got a message that there was a package for them. They went down to pick it up, and it was a little Cocker Spaniel puppy, which he gave to his little girl. Trisha. And he said, I tell you, Trisha loves the dog. She's named it Checkers. And here's the great quote: I don't care what they say about it. We're going to keep it. And I love that image that here's this Republican candidate, and the Democrats are going to come and take away the little puppy from his 6-year-old daughter. Um, a, a little bit of a ham, but still very effective, a very effective argument. Finally, for emotional argument, there's a bit of a tearjerker towards the end there. Richard Nixon says that he's received a letter that he wants to read to the audience, and in it, the letter reveals that the writer is a wife and mother of a 2-month-old son, or her husband is in the Fleet Marines, currently fighting in Korea. And she says, I throw all my support with you, Mr. Nixon, and General Eisenhower, because I'm hoping that with you in office, the fighting in Korea will end, and my husband can come home to see the son that he's never seen. And then there's the line, I only hope to God that you're not too late. And Nixon throws another thing in, which is he says, and folks, the letter writer, she sent me a check for $10, and it's a check that I will never cash. Very effective emotional arguments. The Democrats taking the puppy away from his daughter, and then here's this mother, a young mother whose husband is fighting in Korea. And if Eisenhower doesn't get elected and Nixon doesn't get elected, her husband might die. How much more emotional can you get than that? So those are that's the subtopics: ethos, pathos, and logos in the body of your speech. You would pull those together in the body of your speech and then write it as one after the other, explaining each argument, providing a quote relating to each argument, and then showing how that particular argument helps to support one or the other of the goals that he has set for himself in giving this speech. So in the conclusion, that's where you bring all this together, and you say that Richard Nixon, ultimately the outcome was that he received many hundreds of thousands of letters and telegrams, mostly strongly supportive. And the outcome was that Eisenhower did win the election, and Richard Nixon did become vice president. So that's how you prepare this. This is an actual speech. I know that I've had some students who got confused and thought that maybe it was just another essay that you turn in, but this is an actual speech presentation. It is due on the last day of class, right before final exam week. If you take a look at the schedule, you'll see what day this assignment is due. Don't be afraid to email me if you have any particular specific questions about how to do this assignment. If you would like to tell me what topic you're trying to analyze, I'd be happy to respond with my opinion as to whether that's going to be a good topic or not. But all right, that's how to do it, and good luck. We'll see you in class.